What is up, everybody? Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop Fiasco on Twitter. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. I'm with Fantasy Alarm, Bettor Sports Network. We're sponsored by FFPC, and I'm telling you, folks, we're gonna get right into it today because it's fantasy playoffs. It is crunch time, dude. No messing up, no getting cute because one loss, you're done. And if you get cute and make a weird pick and you lose because of it, you're thinking about it for the rest of the season. So today, for your fantasy playoffs, we're bringing in a heavy hitter, Mr. Justin Boone from The Score. Tony, bring him out. Let's go. Bring him out. Bring him out. What's up, dude? How we doing?
I feel like with that intro, I should have like some music or something that I'm coming out to. So I appreciate you trying to sing there a little bit just to give me something.
Something. Yeah. Get it bumping for you, man. What's happening, dude? Yeah, I mean, this show, here's what we do for those unfamiliar. We go through, we try and hit on every single game. We're going to give you some prop bets and stuff if we have them. You know, if you're not in your fantasy playoffs, the dog's fired up, dude. Let's get after it. Maybe a little DFS, but for the most part, we go through each matchup, tell you who you can trust, who you can't trust. Halfway through, we'll make an FFPC team. So, yeah, let's get after it, man. Before we get to the games, I want to ask you, man, thoughts on the game last night and the firing of game, quote unquote, right? And Tom Telesco, Brandon Staley fired.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked tell me, I mean, for me, I don't want to go like full hyperbole on it, but that might be the worst possible like outcome that you could have seen for the Chargers. Like to show up and give that kind of effort. I was wondering, and listen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it was so bad that there were times in that game early on when there was so many turnovers when I was questioning like, oh, did the players just get together and they were like, we're going to get Brandon Staley fired this week. It's going to be prime time. We'll just keep turning over the ball and then we'll lose big time and he'll get fired the next day. Like it was that bad. And I don't think that's what actually happened, but that's where we're at with the Chargers. So they needed some sort of change. I think it's a good thing for them. Fantasy wise, I'm very worried about that offense. And I know people are going to look and say, oh, a bunch of the receivers came through right in the passing game. But the way that game script was like the Raiders could just back off at some point and let them kind of do that. And there was just no way they were going to come back. Austin Eckler, who the week before when we thought that they were going to go to some sort of committee and all of a sudden Eckler continued to be the hot hand and seemed like he was going to be okay. I thought he would still get there on volume. That didn't happen. Now you got to be worried about him the rest of the season. So it's awful in terms of fantasy. It's terrible in terms of the coaches and GMs that are getting fired because of it. And yeah, on the Raiders side, you go from one extreme to the other. You go from them not being able to score the week before to them putting up that massive total. And the reality is somewhere in between. Dude, the people who are calling for Aiden O'Connell now and asking the question like, oh, is he going to be the quarterback there? Is he the guy for the future? No, of course not. He's going to be like a good backup, I think, but he is not the answer long-term. They just played a team that has completely given up, clearly.
Given up, dude. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, that Aiden O'Connell thing killed me because a kid in a very big league, I don't know what happened. He left Keenan Allen in his lineup, dude. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, nice. Found money, right? And well, you know what I did? I started the Chargers defense, dude. So that matchup, he got a 0. I'm actually losing. I have -3. So just unbelievable. Dude.
Ouch. Yeah, that hurts. I think there's going to be a lot of people after last night that are going to have some pretty wacky results. I had to play Zamir White in a few spots with some running back injuries. I was just happy to get away with it. When he scored that touchdown early, I was like, that's all I needed. Just give me that touchdown. The rest of my team's good. I'm fine. And the fact that the game script went like that and they were able to give him a lot of work and basically everybody on the team scored a touchdown. So if you started a Raider, you're in pretty good shape now going into the weekend.
I was nervous for Devontae Adams after the first 5 touchdowns, but I was like,
it's like all of a sudden you look up and it's like, oh no, he's fine.
He's fine. I'm like, we're running out of touchdowns here. How many can there be? Spoiler alert, there can be quite a few. So we did all right there. Shout out to folks in the chat, Albert hanging out. Kayaks and Bronzebacks has a dyno question for you before we get in. Folks, today we have a full slate. If people that have watched this show before know that we've actually famously never made it through the whole slate without having to go rapid fire. Let me know what the over under is in the chat. They said it at 7.5 games last week and we hit the over for the first time with 8, but we'll see what we can get through here. But Dynasty question here. He wants to know, moving forward, would you rather have DeAndre Hopkins or Josh Palmer? Packaging one of them up in a trade deal.
Interesting. I would still go with Hopkins. I think based on his skill set, he's one of those older receivers, and we're already seeing it, that he's declining, but he's still finding ways to win out there. So I think you're still going to get a rest of this season and then at least one more season of good production for him. I'm not overly excited about Palmer long term. I think they're going to go out and get some other guys if they have to get rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, which, if you look at the contracts and what's going ahead for the salary cap there with the Chargers, good chance they're going to have to make some changes at receiver. But yeah, I don't think the upside is there with Palmer, even though, like I said, people are going to be excited because they see the long touchdown last night, performed a little bit. So I would still go with Hopkins, assuming that you're trying to contend this season. If you're in rebuild mode or something, then maybe you try to get rid of Hopkins, but I would try to still get something more than Palmer, maybe even just rookie picks that you could do something with.
Wow, your own countryman, man. Toronto Dave's gonna be very disappointed when he checks this one out later. And Dunn setting the over/under at 9 games. I'm telling you right now, and I did a show with Justin earlier this year. The answer is no chance on 9
Yeah.
games. The
I
official
talk a lot. I tend to ramble. We know that, especially
No,
when I'm
you're
guessing.
great.
When you're on my show, I make a few more notes. I try to keep us on track. I'm directing traffic. When I go on other people's shows, we might get through like 2 games here the way I
You're
go.
the guest, man. Yeah, this is your spot, man. You get to put your feet up and say your stuff. So yeah. But I will say about DeAndre Hopkins real quick is that his style of play does age well, right? You look at guys like Anquan Bolden, that possession receivers that I would go as far as say he was straight up slow, Anquan Bolden. And DeAndre Hopkins isn't particularly fast either, but that style of play ages well versus the guys that rely on that other stuff.
It's like Keenan Allen, right? People were
Right.
writing Keenan Allen off a couple years ago, and he continues to produce. And I think Hopkins is going to be able to continue to do that. And he's probably going to end up in a better situation. I don't think he's going to stick around in Tennessee. So hopefully we can get him with a better quarterback next season too.
Exactly, man. So I'm with you on that. All right, let's get into the games. First game here, we got a Saturday slate, which is awesome. And the schedule works out great this week because you got the Saturday slate, 3 games. There's only 3 games at 4:00 on Sunday, but they're all kind of barn burners, right? Over under is all around 50, so that's not too bad. And then a couple decent primetime games. So you know what? Maybe the AI robots, we got to give them credit when credit's due. Sometimes the schedule looks kind of bad. This week it looks pretty good. But first game I want to look at Vikings Bengals, 3.5 point spread. 40.5 point over under. And I'm going to ask you for every game, like, is there a bet you love? I don't like betting every single game. I think it's kind of foolish. I kind of pick and choose my spots. So, if there's nothing there, just say nah. But anything here that you like?
I'm not big on betting. I probably should get into more of the props markets and stuff, but it's kind of just something that I've steered clear of and put all my focus into fantasy. And along the way, working with the fantasy stuff, I've kind of dropped everything. Like even the other sports, I used to be so much more into the NBA and NHL and everything. And now it's just like NFL 365 for me. So no real bets here. And I probably won't have too many bets along the way, but there might be the odd one that pop up, especially if you mention a few that I can chime in on.
Good, because we have 15 games here to talk about, and we're 10 minutes into the show, and we've actually not talked about any games yet. So that's a good thing. First game then, Vikings at Bengals. First thing I want to ask you, we talked a lot of tight end stuff when I came on your show. TJ Hawkinson with Justin Jefferson back and now a new quarterback. Do you move him like everyone all year has basically had Kelsey 1, him 2. Do you move him down at all or consider starting other guys? Or are you just saying, hey, you know what? He is who he is?
I think he was the guy that was like the clear top of that next tier. And maybe even at times approaching Kelsey when Jefferson was out. And I think now he falls back into that next pack with Laporta and McBride and some of those other guys that are there. So yeah, he's definitely going to get bumped down. And depending on the matchups, he might fall even a little bit further down. He's still going to be top 5, I would imagine, most weeks. But for sure, when you bring back a guy like Justin Jefferson, and I know he got hurt in that one game, but immediately when he came back, he was a factor, right? He was catching passes early. So I think he would have went on to have a really good game there. And I think any sort of discount that you're getting on Jefferson, take it, because we were going to see it in that game. I think people were doing it that week too, where they were ranking him as like a low end receiver 1, or maybe even a high end wide receiver 2, when in reality, what's stopping him from coming back and putting up really high end numbers? Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback, but Nick Mullins is a guy that can keep this offense on track. I think that's why they're going to him. I think Jefferson probably prefers him, and I think that might be factoring into this decision. So yeah, Hawkinson takes a little bit of a fall, but still a guy that I can't imagine you're going to have a better option then.
Bingo. Jelly of the Month in the chat. First of all, amazing username, especially this time of year, dude. I love that movie. He wants to know, do you risk Achane being out Sunday or play Ty Chandler? And thank you for asking a question during the game we're talking about. Folks in the chat, if you could try and get those in The questions on the players during the games we're talking about, that helps us out a lot, keeps the flow going. So, do you play Ty Chandler Saturday, or let's say Achane doesn't play today, he's got the toe situation. Do you just go with the safe bet or hold out?
In this instance, because I have them ranked very close, and part of that is because of the injury situation, obviously, I would go with Chandler. I have them ranked, might be right next to each other, or at least a spot or two apart. And I think Chandler, he's a volatile play, but at this point, so is Achan with that toe. We don't really know how that's going to impact him. If the Dolphins do get up in that game, I don't think they're going to press him. And we saw that in their last game where they got up and all of a sudden they start leaning on Achan. They're not going to do that here. I think they would be happy to put Jeff Wilson out there and let him grind. So, yeah, Achan, I'm very worried about him not playing, so I would go with Chandler.
Exactly. This isn't he's the only show in town situation. They've got other guys they like. So you're right on that. Andon wants to know Ty Chandler, Brandon Cooks, Curtis Samuel got to sit one.
Ty Chandler, Brandon Cooks, or who was the last one? Curtis Samuel?
Curtis Samuel. Yeah. Got
still going Ty Chandler there. I'll take the guaranteed touches on that one.
So she got to start 2 or 3. She said,
"Oh, sorry, I missed that part." Then we're going Cooks next there. I really like Brandon Cooks, and I think that's going to be a high scoring game
for sure. Last question on this game before we move on to the next one. Jake Browning, he's been playing really well. About 4 250+ yard passing games. Do you think they're going to get calls on this guy, or is he just more of a career backup type guy?
No, I think he's another one of these career backups, and I think the matchups have really helped him, right? They've been really easy top 10 matchups that he's faced, teams that you can throw on. It was the Jags and the Colts, and I think we're going to see him potentially struggle this week going against that Brian Flores Vikings defense. I think that's going to be a whole new world, and it's just a fact that he's getting propped up a bit by the weapons around him. We know that the weapons in that Bengals offense are great. And the coaching staff, I mean, hats off to them too. I think they're being really smart since Burrow went down, finding ways to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers and finding ways to just get Chase that kind of volume most games. So I think that all those things are kind of factoring into some of the performances we've seen from Browning. And I'm a little worried about him this week. I have him more down in that low end QB2 range.
A lot of blitzing coming from the Vikings.
Exactly.
Yeah, could be scary for him. I know I said last question, but just quick, are you a Chase Brown guy?
It depends what your, expectations are for him. If we're talking about, Chase Brown just being that flex option, and maybe a guy that could take over if that's what you want to look at for next year. Sure. I really like what we've seen so far. I don't know that he's ever going to be the guy though. I think he'll probably be in some sort of committee, which is fine. We see so many of these backs now. There's very few guys that get massive workloads. He could be a guy with, 10, 12, 14 touches a week that has these really explosive plays. So yeah, I do like him in Dynasty, happy everywhere I have him. But right now you're going to need that mix and injury for him to really sneak into your lineup, unless you're kind of desperate and you're just throwing him out there as an upside flex.
Yeah. I like to put players into 4 boxes on this show. The FFPC play, which of course is like just the stars of the stars, right? Then you have, after that, you have the regular redraft plays. Then you have your DFS plays, then you have your dynasty stashes. And to me, Chase Brown still falls in the dynasty stash. I'm not even sure I want to use him in DFS because anytime the guys break out like this, they juice up the price a little bit. You know, you had to use him the game where no one knew he was going to do anything, to be honest. So next game here, Steelers Colts, 1.5 point spread, 42.5. Since you don't bet much, I'm just going to ask you, 1.5 point spread. Who do you think wins this game?
In this one, I actually think it's going to be the Colts. I think they're going to find a way to come through here. I think they're going to have more success on the ground. And though I'm a little bit worried about Michael Pittman on the outside, because the Steelers tend to be a little stronger against those outside receivers, I think this is the game where we're going to see Josh Downs see a ton of volume and really come through. It's going to be close, obviously, but yeah, I think the Colts are going to take this one.
All right, I'm with you on that. I missed this one because we were talking about the Bengals. Paul in the chat, T. Higgins or Brandon Cooks this week. Want to make sure we get these ones.
I'm gonna go with Cooks.
Yeah, and James, let us know who your other options are at flex. McLaurin is a good flex option, but it always depends who else you have. And then Barnababy Jones has a question on the Bengals: Joe Mixon or Jaden Reed this week?
Still going with Joe Mixon. I mean, I know that matchup's a little bit tougher for him, but even with Brown there, he's still getting decent volume. And yeah, I think you got to hope that he gets a touchdown, but a strong RB2 and a guy that I'm going to take, even though to be honest, I like both of them this week.
Excellent. On this particular game, 2 quick questions on the Steelers. Is this a Najee game or Jalen Warren game? Nobody knows?
I mean, really, nobody knows. But in reality, I think it is a Najee game. When we saw the offensive coordinator change, some people expected that maybe we would see Warren kind of start to take over. That's not what's happened. They've kind of continued with Najee here, and this matchup, I think, favors him too.
Eddie Faulkner loves Najee Harris. That's the thing.
That's
You see
really
the
what it seems
quotes,
like.
the quotes going back for years. Like there was one, the one like press conference I saw where it looked like he was about to cry. Just when he was saying, they're telling me that we need to use Najee Harris less. This is like a year ago or 2 years ago. He was like, you like to have your best guys out there, but we got to think about the player and think about keeping him fresh. He sounded sad that he couldn't use Najee Harris every play. So
Even though I know everyone, fell in love with Jalen Warren and he makes some really exciting plays and he is the more explosive option there, Najee hasn't been bad this season. Like if you look at a lot of his metrics, he also has been good this year for the most part. So I'm kind of excited actually to play him this week.
right, this isn't like Zeke Pollard down the stretch there. It's more like Zeke Pollard when they were both really good, right?
Yeah.
Like they just do different things. So
Yeah. The
last
offense has other problems. It's not those two.
they have other problem mostly, if you know what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
that's why I got to ask you with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, it's crazy that I'm sitting here looking at Pat Frymuth and saying, boy, would it be nice to have Kenny Pickett back? You know what I mean? But so with Trubisky, Frymuth trust level, did you have him ranked in your top 12 even?
No, God, no, not even close. And I know it seems weird, like whenever you're working on it and you're like, how am I not putting that name higher? But if you look at what he did, like those first 4 games, I think he was held under 10 yards in 3 of the first 4. And he had one game with like 40 something yards and a touchdown. And then since he's come back, I think he's been held under like 30 or 40 yards in 3 of his 4 games. And then had that one big, like 120-yard effort. So yeah, I don't think there's any way that you could play him. And with all these young guys that have popped up this year, or you look at some of the good matchups this week, I don't even know. He's not in my top 15. I think, yeah. So it's sort of more like low end tight end too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Jelly of the month asked about Frymuth. Yeah, his value's tanking, man. It's crazy, and that's why, in my opinion, and people can chop this up and send it to whoever they want. It's so much easier to just be a regular NFL talking head than it is to be a fantasy analyst, because it's so easy to sit there and say Frymuth is good, right? Whereas we have to say Pat Frymuth is good, but I'm going to make a list of tight ends and he's going to be 20 on it. You know what I mean?
1,000%, yeah.
It's
one
hard,
of those guys where if he was on a different team and a different offense, you'd be so excited about him, but it's not coming together for him this year.
Right.
And injuries have been a part of that and the struggles on the offense, like we said. But yeah, long term, hopefully they figure out the quarterback situation and they can get him going. But this year, I would send him right to the waiver wire. There's no reason to be carrying him right now, unless you tight end premium or something like that, of course.
Right. Yeah. Even then, you probably have better options. Like, I play a lot of FFPC leagues, and there's no lines. There's no situations where I Frymuth anywhere close to a lineup. So,
yeah.
On the other side of the ball, Pittman's a mega star, so we don't really have to talk about him. Pierce and Downs, man. For a while there, it looked like Downs was the guy, but Pierce has been playing every snap right this year. So, if you had to choose between those two fellas for this week, Pierce or Downs?
Yeah, I mean, like I touched on earlier, I think it's going to be a Downs week. I think that's the spot that you want to attack the Steelers. You get them in the slot, and we've seen that Downs has that kind of ceiling. And I think this is going to be one of those games where he's going to have a chance to get a lot of volume and put up some big numbers for fantasy. So a guy that I think you can sneak into your lineup as a wide receiver 3 flex.
Nice. And yeah, Colts, they rotate all the tight ends. It's a complete mess. Folks out there looking for a DFS dart on Saturday, though, Will Mallory, bare minimum price. He's basically doing the same thing as Tanner Hudson, right? Running 10, 15 routes and getting 3, 4, 5 targets. But he's, Hudson's 3,000, Will Mallory's 2,500. So yeah, whatever.
And I'm sure I don't need to tell your audience this. I'm sure you're covering tight ends all the time, but I always bring it up on my show that when you're in Dynasty, Will Mallory is the kind of guy that you go and get.
Yes, thank you.
You don't have to spend up. And listen, I'm guilty of, spending up in some leagues to get Kyle Pitts and whatnot over the years. But my most success that I've had in Dynasty are when I've been able to get like a George Kittle. Like George Kittle didn't have a ton of hype initially when he came out.
No.
Got
fifth round pick.
Somebody got down on David Njoku a year or two ago. I was able to get him off the waiver wire after he got dropped. Like you can play tight end in a regular, not tight end premium, regular 12-team league. You can play tight end really cheap and just keep picking up these guys that have the potential and have kind of good metrics and a good profile. And you hope that they're going to hit eventually. We don't know what Will Mallory is going to become, but this is at least promising. If at some point the Colts stop using like 4 tight ends or 5 tight ends every single week, then maybe we can get something out of Will Mallory for fantasy.
No, I'm 100% with you, man. I mean, Mark Andrews was the second tight end drafted on his own team. He was
Exactly.
available as well. These guys are
Start the
look
craft
at
this year, right? Like these
right?
guys can produce.
Darren Waller came out of nowhere. Logan Thomas was the quarterback. Like you could figure it out, dude. And I'll tell you, with Will Mallory, you look at rookie tight ends, right? Like Drew Sample, when he came out, he would play 15 snaps and he'd run 2 routes. Will Mallory, he plays 15 snaps, he runs 15 routes. Like he's just pure, he's on the right side of the tree here. That's the first battle. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Is sorting these guys into blocking or pass catching tight ends. And so guys like Will Mallory, man, all he needs is more work. That's it. So we'll see. Next game here, Broncos. Let's check the chat real quick.
All right. Well,
Uh,
we beat my over under now. We're on to the third game. I think I had it at 2, right? So
to the big, I'll tell you, whatever it looks like we're on pace for, drafting an FFPC team just pulls the rug on the whole thing. Albert wants to know Jalen Warren or Antonio Gibson, full PPR.
Jalen Warren or Antonio Gibson. I think it has to be Gibson now because today we saw that Brian Robinson is out. So I don't think he's going to play this week. And we're going to see Gibson potentially have a decent game and a guy who, even if they fall behind, can get some receiving work. There's a small concern that I have that, with the Commanders not really having a whole ton to play for, like maybe they do want to get Chris Rodriguez more touches and see what they have in him down the stretch. But Gibson is a guy that we know can produce when he gets the volume. And there's a good chance this week that he is going to get that. So I would play him.
Ron Rivera slammed his office door shut when he realized that he has to use Antonio Gibson, right? Like I don't know why he's been in the doghouse.
So strange. Yeah.
They really do. Yeah. I remember when they were making him return kicks and he didn't play any offensive snaps. He was just returning kicks. Like, what the heck?
Up and down. They don't like him. They like him. Now they don't like him again. Yeah.
Now they gotta like him. Let's go. He's back. Broncos against Lions, 4.5 point spread, 48 point over under from the Saturday games. This one probably has the most shootout potential, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think this could be a pretty exciting matchup. Like for as down on the Broncos as we were early in the season, Sean Payton's doing a really good job getting that team together. And the Lions are at home. And normally when the Lions are at home, they tend to be a little better, at least fantasy wise. So let's hope that we get a nice game out of that one.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about it. I know you said you don't gamble much. Here's an easy one for you. Courtland Sutton anytime touchdown.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, you gotta go with that. What is it? 10 of 13 games that he has touchdowns this year, and the matchup is good. The Lions, they tend to really struggle against number one receivers. We've seen a lot of guys go off against them this season, and Sutton, on top of just the touchdowns, I mean, lately he's been doing pretty good. I think it's 4 straight games where he's been over 60 yards. So yeah, he's a great top 20 play.
Yeah. I can't get out of my head. My buddy Kevin Tompkins called him Courtland Tunyon. And
Love it.
even though I love him, that's funny. Javonte Williams thoughts this week. I know Lions are kind of tough, but he's been getting better usage lately, like running more routes than anyone else on the team, which was a concern. He's getting virtually every carry. Where do you have Javonte? Is he RB2, RB3?
No, he is an RB2. He's kind of right in that mix. There's a bunch of names in that area, the low end RB2 range. It'll just depend on some of these injuries, right? Like if guys like Antonio Gibson can get up there, I don't think he's going to pass Javonte though. I think he'll be a couple spots below him, but with Devon Achane with that injury, he's fallen below Javonte. So yeah, kind of right on the fringe of being like a top 20 guy this week.
Did we hit on this one in the chat? I hesitate to put this on the screen because I know I'm playing against Kevin in a league this week, and this might even be against me. So I'm going to recuse myself, but I'm going to allow you to answer this for him. Jalen Warren or Ty Chandler?
It's definitely Ty Chandler. I think he's going to get more volume. And he's a guy that it's kind of like Zamir White was last night, right? You got to hope that the game script kind of goes in his favor. But I think that who else are they playing there? Kenny Nwangwu, who else? Like Miles Gaskin's there. Like you can't be that excited about those other options. So we saw, what was it, a month ago or a few weeks ago, Chandler was coming on. He had a couple of decent games. And I expected at that point that it was going to turn into like 60-40, 50-50 with him and Madison. And then all of a sudden he took a back seat, but now there's no Madison there to stop him. So I think Chandler is going to be just fine and a guy that has some big play potential too. So there's a pretty good ceiling on that one playing him. I like him a lot this week.
Yeah, I kind of like Kenny Nwangwu as a little DFS dart because we've seen him run back a few kicks, all pro kick returner.
Explosiveness, yeah.
He could do it, but yeah, it's Ty Chandler. He's going to get the bulk of the work. On the Lions side, tight end's so tough because there's certain defensive players that can make things difficult for the tight end, but they don't always get assigned the tight end, right? Like when you play like the Chargers, for instance, right? They have Derwin James. Sometimes they put him on a guy like Travis Kelce. Sometimes if you have a scrub tight end, they don't use him like that. So it's very difficult, but I'll say this, Laporta Eddie Jackson changes how the Bears are as a matchup for the tight end. And I'm willing to look at the two Bears games where Eddie Jackson did play versus, the games where he didn't play and Logan Thomas and those guys went off, and say Laporta this week against this team, which is a bottom two team versus the tight end. Laporta for me is you rank him either 2 or 3, right? At tight end.
Yeah, he's right up there. I'm not sure where I have him, but exactly in that range. Also, when you look at the other options there, a lot of that, is a factor when McBride is a tough matchup. I'm sure we'll talk about him if we get to that game. But yeah, there's some other guys up there that have tough matchups, and Hawkinson now dealing with Jefferson. So it's kind of hard to bump Laporta too far down. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Is this a Gibbs game or a Monty game?
I think it's probably going to be a Gibbs game, but that is one that I've struggled with all year long. I'm fine admitting that. Trying to go back and forth on that one. They seem to still love Montgomery. He's the one that gets a lot of the goal line work there, but Gibbs just has the explosiveness. And I think it's one of those situations where when you're in the fantasy playoffs, I think I could live with myself if I went with Gibbs and not Montgomery and I got beat that way versus if I went the other way around, because Gibbs has the ceiling, right? Gibbs could have that 150-yard, 2-touchdown game. I don't know that we'll see that from Montgomery.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that, like, shootout games where teams have to throw, that's where the money's made, and Gibbs is getting the pass work, right? So like that's on the table for him. And you're absolved of like any ranking of these two players. Everyone was absolved the day that Jahmyr Gibbs came out on that podcast and told everyone that he and Monty like decided who was going to score the touchdown, right? Like that.
Yeah.
All fantasy analysts are now officially absolved of the ranking of these two players if that's what they're doing on the field.
Yeah,
like,
we're playing rock, scissors, paper on the sidelines to figure out who's going to get the goal line carries. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, when they played the Bears, I was like, this has got to be a Monty game because, like, revenge game. Obviously, Monty's going to get the touchdowns here, right? So we're absolved on that one. A lot of people in the chat saying that they need Gibbs this week. I'll tell you by half if it's a Gibbs or Monty game. Yeah, Anthony, that's a good call, dude. And then Rockout wants to know real quick, Kenneth Walker, Keaton Mitchell, or Terry McLaurin. I know we're not.
I don't really love any of those options. I think you probably go with Walker. He's got the same kind of big play potential that Keaton Mitchell has. But man, that matchup is awful. And I had Walker as one of my sits in my start sit stash quick column today. So it's not a great scenario with all three of those. And McLaurin has been so weird. Like the way that offense has gone this season and the amount that they've passed and the fact that he is not putting up better numbers than he is, he's so hard to trust.
I know, man. It is. He is that guy. Him and Deontay Johnson, I look at him and I'm like, well, just can't.
I think I have them ranked right next to each other this
That's
week.
what I'm saying, dude. I get to them. I put them in my rankings and then I just keep moving guys over them. I'm like, yeah, I'll start this guy. I'll start hit Rashi Rice or these guys start this guy, So anyway, we're on to Sunday, dude. We're on to Sunday. We made it through 3 games. 1 p.m. Texans Titans 3-point spread, 37-point over under. Very first thing I want to ask, Derrick Henry, man, the narrative does that hold true? It's a new coaching staff, kind of a new organizational philosophy, but does that hold true? That Derrick Henry destroys the Texans narrative?
So if you had asked me a couple weeks ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't think so. Cause the Texans offense was great. And man, if they get up on them and then all of a sudden, are they going to continue to run Henry and all that sort of stuff? But the way this game's setting up now with Davis Mills potentially starting here and all these other guys injured, Nico Collins out and Tank Dell out, and all of a sudden, do you not see the Titans just handing it to them? I think that we're probably going to see another Derrick Henry game. Maybe not 200 yards because, like you said, D'Amico Ryan's being there, and I think they play a little bit better defense. But with all these injuries that the Texans have, Henry is setting up for another big game. It's crazy. I also, at the beginning of the season, if you had asked me to put money down on whether Derrick Henry was even going to be the back for Tennessee at this point in the season, whether it was because injury or because he got traded before the deadline, I would have bet no, but he's right back here with 2 matchups against them in the next 3 weeks. So
I know he's like the Hulk, dude. Like the more beat up he gets, the better he plays down the stretch. I swear. So good enough to put in our FFPC lineup. Maybe we should just jump in and do that real quick right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we probably could. I think it might be foolish. Another one of those ones where if he goes off and has another big game, are you going to be able to live with yourself knowing that Derrick Henry is going against the Texans and you didn't play him? Like you just feel like a fool after.
That's exactly it, dude. That's exactly. You sit back and you say, I mean, 200 yards like every time. So, all right, let's get in there. So, folks that haven't watched the show, we always make an FFPC lineup with the guest. FFPC quickly becoming one of my favorite places to play because you can start basically anyone you want. There's one rule, which is you can't start two guys from the same team. And Justin, I quietly kind of like that because in DFS, I hate when there's like a stack that's like unstoppable, right? Like there's been a couple weeks where you start Tyreek Hill and Tua, and if you don't have those two, the day's over, right? But here you can't start both of them. So go to myffpc.com, use promo code Coop or scan the QR code that's on the screen right there. And get set up. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. This week, we're jumping into a 30-team one, right? And we can start anyone we want. So first things first, let's get Derrick Henry in. And also, while we're on running backs, let's also put in Alvin Kamara. Christian McCaffrey. I want Christian McCaffrey in.
Yeah, kind of hard not to there.
He scored 3 touchdowns. And again, folks, in this one, you want to start the most chalk possible. The difference between the winning lineups is usually pretty thin. It's sometimes boils down to picking the right guys on the right teams. So that one we got to get in there. The next question I usually always start with is Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce.
I would go Kelce there. I don't love Mahomes as much this season. I bumped him down the rankings a little bit. We just kind of haven't seen as many ceiling games from him. And I think this week at quarterback, there's some other guys that I like a lot more, whereas Kelce, always got to bank on him being the top guy.
Right. You can only start one chief. You kind of have to get one of those guys in there this week might be one where maybe we don't. Maybe we
could, yeah. Maybe we go elsewhere, but it would be hard. Another one where I think it would be hard to not have Kelce in your lineup.
For sure, man. So looking around at some of these shootout games, like the potential of the Bills Cowboys game, like we have to have a Bill, we have to have a Cowboy. Do you want to go CeeDee Lamb? Do you want to go Tony Pollard? How do you feel about that one?
I would go CeeDee Lamb in that one. With the way he's been playing, I mean, really putting himself up into that upper echelon of receivers this year.
Yep.
Which, it's tough for me not to pick a Bill necessarily, though we could look at maybe another position. But I think Lamb is certainly somebody that you feel great about having in your lineup.
Yeah. What QB do you have ranked 1 this week?
I have Jalen Hurts 1. It's very close. I almost would say for this that I would rather play Lamar. I think the ceiling for Lamar is just massive this week. Everybody's been throwing on the Jags. Very, very interested in what Lamar could do. I think this is going to be one of those 300 passing yards, 100 rushing yards kind of game for him. So, and with Hurts being a little bit banged up, I'm going with Jackson.
Yeah, I like starting like rushing QBs or QBs that spread the ball around. So I don't, because we're not going to use Isaiah Likely here. So, I mean, it's great to use him. We weren't going to start Zay Flowers or any of those guys either. So, all right. On the Eagles then, AJ Brown, right? Might as well.
Yep. That's the perfect spot for him.
Yeah, these are great because you look at the lineup and you're like, my God, this is glorious.
Silly, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So other games we have to get guys from. We got a 49er. We need somebody on the Rams, I think.
I was just going to say the same thing. And for me, I think I'm going back to Cooper Kupp. And I would shout out, a lot of injury analysts now are doing fantastic work. Deepak Chona, I brought him on my show multiple times in the last few years. And I want to shout him out because he's doing really good work, not just on when players are going to come back. I think we might be a little bit too focused sometimes on that. He does really good work on when they're going to be close to 100%. So they might come back, but
I like that.
He's listing that it's, they're going to have potentially a 15% drop off in production based on, historical averages on that injury and that position and all that sort of stuff. And he's nailed a couple recently. Christian Watson, when he first came back, wasn't doing much. And the exact week when he went off and had his big game was the week that Deepak nailed it. And then the other one was Kupp last week that he said, we were down on Kupp a little bit, didn't have very good games the couple weeks before. And last week was the one that I believe he targeted for Kupp to be close to 100%. And guess what? Kupp comes out and has this massive game. So I'm very confident going back to Kupp now.
That's a nice tidbit, man. The Deepak Chona, man. Everybody go check him out. I like Edwin Porras too. There's a lot of people in the community that do a great job. So yeah, and they help us out because that's something I don't know anything about. Right?
Exactly.
I love
having don't have the time to go do that research, right? Yeah. So you can lean on them, and then you can get them on your show and give them that platform and get everybody following them. But yeah, and there's a lot now. I mean, if you look back, even 5 years ago, there was only a couple that were doing it. Gene Bramall, I miss. Gene's not doing as much anymore, but
Yeah.
Gene was fantastic. Stephania Bell's been great for a long time. But yeah, there's a bunch now that you can lean on.
Yeah, I do that with certain other stuff, and people do it with me too. They send me tight end questions. I send kicker question. I send my kicker questions to Lindellians on Twitter. I'm like, yep, or Denny. I'm like, go ahead, go crazy. So yeah, all right. We need a lion here. That's one that we definitely going to need. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is the easy one, but we could go Gibbs or Monty as well, or Laporta, to be honest.
I think I would go Gibbs on it. I think, like I said earlier, I see that ceiling for him. I could see him coming through. We've watched him do it in different games, and if we do get that kind of shootout here, he's the guy that I think we could throw in there, and I would feel pretty good about.
Good. We're in flex territory here, so we can start.
Is it supposed to be me making the final call on these, or are we supposed to be doing this together? I mean, you should pick one or two here.
You have to do the whole thing.
Okay.
Here's what happens is you do it, and then I keep the money if we win.
Perfect.
So here's the deal. And do you plan on going to Fantasy Football Expo? Because a lot of people that have been coming on, the deal we've made is that we go to the expo. If we come in third or fourth, we win $100. That's drinks and like maybe a dinner for us. If we win the whole thing, come in first place, that's a couple $100, and that's drinks for the Fantasy Alarm, the score, and anybody in the chat that throws a name out that we use. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
I think this might be the year that I have to go. Everybody's giving me a hard time the last couple seasons that I haven't gone. It's really turned into seems like a super fun event. And last year I had quite a few people get on me for not being there. Yeah. So this year I'll probably have to get down that way.
Yeah. So where's Gibbs? I'm having trouble finding him here. We'll get him in there. Let's see. Other games. I think we have to have somebody from the Bills. I think we got to throw in Stephon Diggs.
I think and I know his brother won't be out there going against him, but I think that added motivation on top of the fact that, like, how long can you go here with him kind of having these quieter games? It's got to be an eruption spot at some point, and what better game to have it in? I think this is going to be just a fantastic shootout, and Diggs is going to have to come through in that.
Awesome. All right, one more we got to get in here. I don't trust Achane. Do we go with a Kamara? Do we go with a Barkley? Or we can go to wide receiver side and go with like a Mike Evans or DK Metcalf? This is kind of the difference maker here. I think I might like Kamara.
Yeah, I think Kamara is probably the guy. You just expect that he is going to get a lot of volume the way that offense has been. And Jamal Williams, he's practicing. He's limited, but he's a little bit banged up. So they really, really have to go to Kamara. And that matchup should be pretty good for him.
Excellent. All right, let's wrap it up with the defense. Cardinals against the 49ers, right? No, how about
can we go back retroactively and play the Raiders from last night?
Oh my God. Goodness. That would have been great, dude. We could do Atlanta in the rain game at Carolina. We could do we could do Miami. I don't think we have anybody in from Miami.
We don't have anybody from Miami. Yeah. And I think it's probably going to be a closer game than you like in that one because of the injuries with Tyreek. If he plays, he'll be limited. The weather is going to be terrible there. But these two teams played a few weeks back and the Dolphins defense did pretty well. So yeah, I think that's a good spot to get them going.
All right. And then we'll wrap it up with a kicker. I don't know what's going on with Gibbs and why he's not in there, but we'll get that fixed. And kicker Jason Myers at Philly. Maybe Brandon McManus at Baltimore. No, I think we'll go Myers, right? It's not a bad one.
I don't know. I don't love that one. What about Jake Moody at Arizona? You're not having to deal with the weather. You're still getting. We had McCaffrey. We had McCaffrey, right? I just remembered that.
That's the road.
Philly, Baltimore. This is now where it's getting you. Wow, on kicker of all places.
This is where they get
back
you
to bite us. Yeah,
it happens every time. We can't use anybody in the rain game. We could use Chase McLaughlin. We could use. No, I don't want to use.
We don't have anybody from Indy, do we? What about Matt Gay going against the Steelers?
That's it. That's the one.
I think that's my highest ranked kicker that we haven't taken someone from his team yet.
He had a really rough week last week. Oh, you know what it is, dude? Now I figure out what's going on. I'm so stupid. There's nobody from the Saturday slate. There's no Saturday games in here. That's why
that was the only guy that we picked from Saturday.
Well, no Gibbs. That's why we can't use Gibbs. So
that's what I'm saying. He's the only one.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting that we went that
Saturday
way.
Slate. That explains it.
Yeah. So Barkley, let's go Barkley, or we can go Mike Evans. What do you think?
Yeah, I got to make the call. You're not even going to make one
Got
for
to
me
make the call.
here.
No, I'm not going to make
Just
a
try to
single
see
one.
where I have them together. You know what? Let's go Mike Evans. I think
Yeah.
Jair Alexander's out, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah, Mike Evans, I think is a good one in that spot.
All right. And we've been doing this for forever. So I'm putting Jason Myers in there. That's
All
the
right,
lineup.
fine.
Imagine we lose just because of that stupid kicker decision there. I don't know. We'll debate that one off air. But yeah, here's the squad: Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry against Houston, Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Alvin Kamara, Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce. My goodness, the chalk of all chalk. That's why I love playing on here, man, because it's like, and then every week you think you won because you're like, oh my God, my stars, my boys. And then you look and, it's very close. But everybody out there, you can compete against us. I'll even give you the number 72450. Team Coop and Boone. Got a nice little ring to it, right?
It
Coop.
does. Absolutely.
Yeah. So get in there, use promo code Coop at myffpc.com. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. You're going to want to have money in there because this one's fun, but the playoff challenge is even more fun. That's the one where you pick your teams and you have to kind of map out the playoffs because it's the same thing. You can only use one player from each team, but if your quarterback gets eliminated in wild card, you're in big trouble. So that one's even more fun. Make sure you're set up over there. All right. So those just joining us, I got Justin Boone here. We're going through game slates, as many as we can get to before we run out of time. Hang tight after this show. We got to be out right at 2:00 because Brit's Blitz is coming up next with Brit Flynn. Easy for me to say. She does an amazing job. She, especially on Friday, you have to check her show because she is always on top of the injuries. She handles all that stuff for us. So she knows who's in, who's out. You can ask her those tough questions, what she thinks. So make sure you stay tuned for Brit's Blitz after this. Next game here on the slate, Jets, Dolphins. Honestly, Justin, I don't even want to talk about this game.
All right, that's fine by me. The weather's going to be terrible. That's the one thing we can mention that maybe some people don't realize. The weather in that one's going to be really bad. I think it's like 20-mile-per-hour winds, 35-mile-an-hour gusts. Going to have rain in that game. So that's just going to make it even worse on top of the fact that you're probably not going to get a ceiling game from Tyreek in a bad matchup and he's banged up and maybe he won't even play. So
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying. It's
Not
gross.
going to be, not going to be fun for fantasy.
Start those guys where you have to. Instead, let's just hit the chat real quick. We'll save time that way. So forget this game. I don't want to talk about it. Curtis Samuel or Romeo Dubs from Ann. She wants to know.
I'm going Curtis Samuel. And what we talked about with McLaurin before, like I almost feel like Samuel is the better play, even though every single week when I do the projections, I'm still putting McLaurin above. But Samuel's had some fantastic games when he has been healthy this year. It's really the down games have come when he's been hurt, he missed time. But when he's been healthy this year, he has come through more often than not. So yeah, he's a guy that I feel good about. But I think both those guys are probably going to come through. It's pretty good game environments for them. And with Watson not playing on the Packers, Dobbs always a guy who can get a touchdown for you, maybe even a couple touchdowns. So yeah, both pretty decent plays.
The thing with Curtis Samuel that makes him a little bit of a ringer at times. If you remember 2020 when Christian McCaffrey was out, he played 40 snaps in the backfield and got a ton of she played 70 snaps in the backfield, got 40 carries. Right? He actually, unlike Jaden Reed, him and Deebo Samuel actually line up in the backfield at times. And with Brian Robinson out, I mean, is there a prop on carries? 0.5 over under 1 carry this week. I would bet the over. I bet the over. PPR playoffs needs 1 out of Henry, Olave, Rashee Rice. So Tank's got a wagon over here of a team.
Yeah. If we're just going with 1, then we're still chasing that big Henry game, even in PPR.
You have to, man. You have to. Noah Brown in garbage time, he says. Have to flex one of Noah Brown, Isaiah Likely, or Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones scares me, but AJ Dillon now has a thumb. So Aaron Jones might be forced into full-time work.
Yeah, as long as Aaron Jones is playing, he would be the guy that I would go with there. I know a lot of people are down on him, but the matchups that he has left, it's pretty good. When he has been out there, when he's been healthy, he is going to be the focal point of that offense. And you mentioned it, the Dillon thumb injury. I think he's going to try to practice today, but for a running back having a thumb injury, a broken thumb to boot, I think it's going to be really difficult for him. Yeah.
I missed this while we were making our FFPC team, but Albert was with you on Cup versus the Commanders. So Albert, if we win this week, you go to the Expo, you get a beer or a soda pop with us, man. So let's hope we win, and we'll see you out there. Devonta Smith or Rashee Rice this week. He goes to your ranking. He says you got him back to back in your rankings, so he's putting your feet to the flames.
This is the funny part because, like, most of the time when guys are ranked back to back, the projections that I have on them are so close. And then people will ask me questions like this, and I always make sure to say that it's like a coin flip, right? It's a very tough one. I feel like I'm still leaning towards Devonta Smith there. Just because I think that could turn into a bit of a shootout in that game. We might see a slower paced game with the Chiefs and the Patriots. So I would go there. But again, two guys that it's very, very difficult to choose between.
With the coin flip, I'll tell you what, and I've said this before on the show. You take a coin and say Devonta Smith is heads and Rashee Rice is tails. When you flip that coin, you're in your heart. You're going to find yourself rooting for it to land on one side. Don't even look at the coin. Just flip that coin high in the air and don't even look. Start the guy that your heart tells you. Because I'm telling you, for really, when it's I do it all the time where I flip it and I'm like, oh, I hope the coin says I can start Rashee Rice. Just start Rashee Rice, dude. You know, go with the guy you want. Go with the guy you want to root for. Jamie's struggling at QB. Kyler or Howell? This is a difficult question. Kyler is a tough matchup. Howell has a shootout potential matchup, but he's also Sam Howell. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Howell by a few spots. And I think Kyler's had some good matchups against the 49ers in the past, but right now, Howell is the guy who has had some really big games this season, has outproduced a lot of guys that you'd be shocked that he's outproduced this year. And the way that offense plays, it's like no matter what happens, that defense is going to get up a ton of points, and that offense is going to keep throwing. Howell gets some rushing yards. He's a guy inside my top 10 where Kyler, to me, more of a high-end QB2 and a guy with a bit of a scary floor if that 49ers defense can really beat him up.
Yeah, Kyler also had a different team in the past. So
exactly.
Kyler or Tua?
I think that one I have side by side, and I lean Kyler just a little bit because of all the things we talked about in that Miami game that we don't want to discuss anymore. But the Tyreek situation, the weather, a lot of things not lining up for Tua this week, including the matchup. And he just played them a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't a good result for him by any means. I think he had 230-ish yards and a touchdown, a couple picks, a fumble. So not looking good for Tua this week, but both guys were in my sit section in my start, sit, stash, quit column today.
In the game that will not be named. I'm just salty because I have Tyreek Hill in a couple leagues where it's like I've just been steamrolling and I just been sitting back like everything's fine. And then now I'm in the playoffs, eight team playoffs. So I don't have a bye week. And I'm just like, how is it coming down to this? How is this happening to this team?
Well, I'm in a dynasty league where I've won 3 of the last 4 and 3 of the last 4 seasons, 3 of the last 4 championships I've won in that league. And I'm trying to keep it going. And I went out and got Tyreek as that cherry on top. And now I might not have him. So kind of worried about that. Yeah.
Classic. Mike Evans bounce back game. Yeah. Mike Evans is awesome. Yeah. McKinnon at Pats, likely at Jags, or Shaheed versus Giants?
That's really tough.
Yeah,
I think I would probably go likely. And let's get your thoughts on this.
I love it.
What do you think a likely right now? Because he had a decent game in the first game where he took over, and then last week, obviously the big game, a lot of it came on that one play. I'm really excited. He's stepped basically into that Mark Andrews role for the most part, and I talked about how I think Lamar is going to have a great game this week. So, am I right in being excited about likely?
The Jags are very beatable, very beatable by the tight ends. Njoku scored a touchdown where no Jaguar was even on the screen last week, right? And then he scored another one. So yeah, I mean, unlikely he's in the Mark Andrews role. They told us that's what they're going to do. They told everyone Zach Ertz need not apply. They love this guy. He's playing the whole game. So I have trouble ranking 5-6 guys ahead of him. I'm just starting him. Next one, Fields or Love here.
Oh, that's another tough one. I think I'm going with Love, going against the Bucks, and Bucks are a pass funnel. You can throw on them like crazy. They've had some injuries all year long. So, feeling actually pretty good about Love, even though he doesn't have Christian Watson. I think they still got a lot of good weapons in that offense. They can take advantage.
Yeah, Goddard or Kincaid. We're going to go, if Kincaid gets a full practice in today, I'm going Kincaid. If he's limited, then maybe you play it safe with Goddard. But Kincaid is just he played more snaps last week than he had in the 3 games prior. I'm not worried about Dawson Knox. I'm worried
the injury is the only thing. Yeah.
Thumb, shoulder. Yeah. Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, or Gibson. We might just be doing starts. It's playoff week, so we might just be doing start sits for the rest of the show, whatever.
Yeah. Aaron Jones for me, as long as he's healthy, and we're going to have to watch that right up until that game's going to go, just to make sure, we'll probably hear something, I would imagine, out of some of the national reporters to get a better idea of kind of how he's feeling. But right now with that Dillon situation, I'm going to chase that upside of Aaron Jones.
Cool. McKinnon, Noah Brown, or Pop Douglas?
Oh, I don't really love any of those, to be honest. I
guess Noah Brown, dude.
I guess Noah Brown, yeah, just and hope that he can rekindle some of that magic, but he doesn't. He's probably not gonna have CJ Stroud, but I guess we'll see on that one.
The problem that I have with Noah Brown is that he's Noah Brown.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen this guy. Everyone just like, you know, some of the casual fantasy gamers that like don't look at all the depth charts and never even thought about this player. They treat him like he's some brand new commodity. I mean, we've been watching Noah Brown. We've been watching Noah Brown be like the 7th string wide receiver on the Cowboys for years, you know? So like, I
Yeah.
don't know. Let's see. Last one, Amari or Kincaid. What do you think on that one? It's FFPC, so that's going to be tight end premium.
Oh, well, then you're going Kincaid as long as he's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Joel, my 2 favorite fantasy guys. Joel, you're my favorite commenter at this moment.
And you know what? I'll say it here too. I said it on my show recently. I really appreciate the people that do take the time to say thank you. I got a lot of people that when I post my content, they jump in there and throw a thank you on it and stuff. And I know there's a lot of analysts in the industry that deal with just a ton of trolls. I've been very fortunate that, I've had my share of those, but it is not very often. And it's just super nice when people are going to take the time and thank you for the work that you're putting in. And it helps us get through, I think, this December stretch when we've been doing this. I've been working 7 days a week for now we're on the 4th month. So it starts to get a little difficult in the last few weeks. And it's super nice when people throw that in there.
Yeah, the snap count articles and stuff when there's no bye weeks, like that's it gets grindy, you know. Like sometimes as a fantasy analyst, sometimes I'm like, oh, nice, they were on a bye this week. Bye, next team, right? So
yeah, or you start to have holiday parties that maybe you can't attend because you got to work and stuff, and yeah, that's when it's a bit of a grind up. But we love it. That is by no means my complaint, and I love my job every single day. I'm getting to do it.
It's football on New Year's, football on Christmas. So here we go. All right, so now it's official. Mark the over/under. We got to go rapid fire. That's where we decide. We got through one. I'm gonna count the Jets and Dolphins game. We got through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Wow, that's a record. That's a record low. We technically only got through 4, but I knew we were gonna do that.
We'll do the thing. I'll do the defense thing. That one's on me. I'm taking that one. That's my fault.
I knew we were going to do that, though. But no, but the thing is, the information is more important than anything. So let's go one quick takeaway from each game. I ask you one quick question on each game. Bears, Browns, Donta Foreman, what's your trust level on that situation?
I like him as a volume play, as an RB3. I was very surprised last week that they went right back to him, but it's clear that they think that he's the top guy in that backfield, and they're probably right. I just assume that they're going to give Roshan a bit of run. So Foreman, as long as you're not expecting too much, volume-based RB3, and you got to hope he finds the end zone.
Exactly. I just hated that Matt Eberflus was like, yeah, we decided who gets more carries based on practice during the week. I was like,
yeah.
That's the worst possible. That's the worst possible thing you could say to me personally. Like, I took that personally. Chiefs, Patriots. Chiefs obviously projected to win. Zeke Elliott got a lot of work last week. Are you going back to the well, or are you nervous on that one?
No, I'm going right back to the well. I think it's another guy who's a volume play, but really it's not even the rushing, and he's going to get a ton of carries, I'm sure. It's the receiving work. Bailey Zappi loves dumping it off to these running backs, and we've seen 13 targets for Zeke over the last 2 weeks. I think he, has over 100 yards and a touchdown through the air. And that kind of makes him a little bit matchup proof. Like, even in a game where we assume the Chiefs are going to take it to the Patriots, Zeke's going to continue to catch a lot of passes. I think he's fine to put out there as a low end RB1 or at worst a high end RB2.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm in. I'm a Patriots fan, as you can see some of the stuff behind me. And I guess we're rooting to lose, but I guess it is fun still to watch Zeke out there. I've always been a Zeke guy, so I was very excited when he came to the team. I was like, yeah, we got him. Crop top boy in the house.
Nice.
Falcons, Panthers. I'm hoping this game gets postponed due to some sort of weather-related flooding or something. Like, I really am. I'm like, how high does the flood need to be for this game to get canceled, right? Like, but weather's supposed to be bad, man. Can you trust Pitts in London in something like this?
Because of the weather and because of their quarterback situation, no, I don't feel great about having them out there this week. And I'll keep it sweet because it's short and sweet because we were trying to get through it here. But yeah, I don't feel great about having those guys in my lineup.
Producer Tony pointed out, and I saw this, tickets are going for 45 cents to that game.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I saw screenshots, dude. I would go 50 cents, dude. Hell yeah.
Get your poncho going, your rain poncho, and away you go.
Oh yeah. I would actually buy the seats as far back, see if maybe I can get underneath some sort of the rows above me. Nice. Giants at Saints. We got a question in the chat on this one, so it makes it easy. Nick Mullins, Tommy Cutlett, or Desmond Ridder? Ryan, what happened?
Man, yeah, I guess you just ride the fun story of Tommy DeVito, right? Like let's just go with it
Hey,
and see
let's
what
go.
happens. It's
I'm
the
not
most
Italian.
fun option because none of those are great.
You would think that this is easier to make look good, but I swear I'm not Italian enough to do it. I'm too German. It looks German when I do it. You know what I mean? Like I can't do it. It's you really got to have that Italian in you to make it look good. Uh, Buccaneers. We're not talking about Taysom Hill ever. Buccaneers at Packers. Let's see in this one. Jaden Reed has been hot, man. Where are you putting him? Are you buying the hype with the Jaden Reed?
Yeah, I think in this situation with the way that they're finding, different ways that they get the ball in his hands, I think he's more of a low end wide receiver too right now, and a guy I'm very excited to have in my lineups, and a guy that, man, do I regret. I have one redraft league that's very, very deep, and my wide receiver 3 spot has been that one that's just been the struggle all year long, and I let him go earlier in the year to pick up someone because of injuries, and it's a very short bench. It's only like 4 players in your bench, so some of those bye weeks it gets tough. And I let him go, and man, do I wish I had him in my lineup right now.
The one who got away.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for those at home, this is the part of the show sheet where we're supposed to draft the FFPC team. This is supposed to be the halfway point of the show. So there you go. We talked enough about Commanders and Rams during the FFPC, so I'm gonna skip that one. 49ers are easy. You start Purdy, Debo, Ayuk, CMC, and Kittle. There you go.
Start them all.
Yeah. Start use check if you have a fullback spot.
You worried about McBride real quick?
No. I actually have him ranked fairly high, dude. He's a focal point of the offense. I know it's a bad matchup, right? Like, but this guy, the way he's been utilized, I really don't think they can go away from him. I really don't think that the 49ers can just blanket him to the point where they're not going to look at him. I don't think he's going to have a ton of yards, but I mean, I'm starting. And a lot of other guys have bad matchups too. Like obviously Hawk and Laporte have amazing matchups, but like, I don't know, man. Like, the Ingram against the Ravens isn't a easy matchup either. Right? Like, so you got to just play them. Cowboys at Bills. Who wins this football game, Justin? That's because a lot of implications, real life implications on this game. There it is, dude.
I've changed my tune. A couple weeks ago, I will admit that I thought the season was potentially over for them, but with the way that they've been playing now, I think there's a chance. I'm starting to believe again. I'm starting to believe again that there is a chance that they could win out and actually take that division.
The Dolphins are getting gross at the right time, man. The Dolphins schedule is actually,
and they got a very tough schedule. Yeah.
So, hey, good for you guys. I always like Bills fans, even as a Patriots fan, just good natured folks. Are you going to get a 86 jersey, Dalton Kincaid?
I don't have any Bills jerseys actually at the moment. I'm not really.
You kidding me?
I'm not a big jersey guy. I got tons of shirts and hat. I mean, I'm wearing a Bills hat right now. Tons of that stuff, but no.
I have a Bills jersey.
All right, maybe I gotta get
Patriots
one. Fan. Love it. Oh, nice. There you go.
The Thurman Thomas. Yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up. Ravens Jaguars. Who wins that one? Implications.
That's going to be the Ravens. Yeah. I think it's going to be that huge game for Lamar, like we talked about.
Yeah. Had a question in the chat. Trevor Lawrence trust level.
Worried about Trevor Lawrence in that matchup. I know we've seen some other quarterbacks do pretty well against them, but I think Lawrence isn't out there with all of his weapons. They got some injuries in the offensive line, so concerned about him.
Monday Night Football. Can the Seahawks beat the Eagles? It's only 3-point spread.
I don't think that they're going to. No, I think that the Eagles are going to get right in that game.
I agree. All right, we got to get out of here. Let everybody know what you got going on, where they can find you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you, dude.
Well, thank you for coming on my show a couple weeks ago. You can find all my work over at The Score. You could download the app, not just for my content, but all the awesome work that we're doing across all sports over there at The Score. The Score Fantasy Football Podcast. We're going 5 days a week right now, doing everything we can to help you get to the fantasy championship and hopefully take home a title. So, check all that stuff out. And you can find me on Twitter or X at Justin Boone.
I tell you, everybody complained last week about the Yahoo Sportacular box score. I was sitting here looking at my Score app, and I was like, hey, I don't got any problems.
I always say I use The Score even before I work there, so that tells you something.
We don't got trouble over here. So there you go. All right, thank you guys. Thank you in the chat, Tony. Thank you behind the glass.